Good afternoon and welcome to On the Spot Motorsports Media. I tell you what, we got a great show coming this way tonight, don't we, Robert?
Oh my goodness, yes. We got something, a little bit of a treat for everybody here. We got Mr. Mike McCandless of McCandless fame. His father, Herb McCandless, Mr. Four Speed, but also he and his family are involved with sponsoring the Sox and Martin Hemi Challenge at the U.S. Nationals. It's going to be interesting. The man's got his hands in everything, got his pulse on everything Mopar and automotive. So this ought to be fun.
And you know, you speak of that family, and boy, they have a wonderful and beautiful collection of cars and signs. You know, automobilia, just a fabulous thing that they do, and preserving not just drag racing, but preserving every bit of car culture with their collection. So, yeah, it's going to be great. And I tell you what, we'll be right back after a few messages.
Reliability to drive thousands of miles. Confidence for those who fly high. Redline oil products give you the power to crush the competition. And a track record of being the best. Redline oil products. You push it to the limit. We'll protect it.
Ready to take your engine to the next level? Scorpion Racing Products delivers precision-engineered, high-performance rocker arms that dominate the track. 100% CNC machined in the USA with aerospace-grade aluminum for unmatched strength and durability. Our rocker arms handle extreme conditions with multiple ratios available to fit your needs. Backed by our exclusive lifetime warranty. When performance matters, choose Scorpion Racing Products. Proven, reliable, unstoppable.
With more than 30 years of engine and drivetrain experience, Big Stuff is your one-stop total power management solution. Whether you're controlling a 600 horsepower street car and want the best drivability, or have a 6,000 horsepower race car, need the most bulletproof, reliable control hardware, Big Stuff can do it all. All of our components are designed and manufactured right here in the USA, including our computers, wiring harnesses, touchscreen displays, and more. Nothing is built offshore, and we take pride in being one of the only automotive aftermarket manufacturers that can say this. Learn more at BigStuff3EFI.com or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram for more information.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I tell you what, you've been busy. You just got finished with the car show up there in Pennsylvania. And from the way it looked, man, it was a wonderful turnout.
Yeah, they set a record. I believe it was 3,200 cars that were registered for Chrysler's at Carlisle. It's a huge turnout, especially for the Mopar world. And even with a high degree of rain probability, people still came out, and the rain held off for the majority of the event. A little warm, but it was excellent. It was a really good time.
Yeah, you say a little warm. That's funny. But Mike, thank you so much for coming on. You have a crazy busy schedule. Every time we've talked to each other, either I've been out of town or you've been out of town. And so appreciate you. And right now you're working now.
That is correct. There's work going on in the background. So this was a perfect opportunity. I'm like, I'd really like to get out of some of that work. So I'm going to go jump over here and do some other work. So
Exactly.
you might hear some noise in the background at some point.
And that's fine. And the thing about it, ladies and gentlemen, Mike's not at his shop currently. He's at another location for work in another state. So once again, it's appreciate his dedication to
No
do
problem.
things like this. But Mike, we want to talk. Everybody in the Mopar world, especially, but everybody in drag racing has heard the name McCandless. Okay, typically understanding with your father, going back in the history of racing four speeds, first pro stock win at Indy, and driving for Sox and Martin, and just a rich history. And his family is so involved with it from day one. And Mike, tell us more about you.
Yeah, I'm the youngest of three, and so I'm 10 and 8 years younger than my older brothers. And so I grew up a little differently within the family because dad's business was already, sort of well established and growing at that point. Like most kids that have parents that own a business, you would work within that business, and it was pretty typical. But dad was so busy at the time that I was growing up in the business. I wasn't super hands on with him with learning the technical aspects of all things cars and all things racing, whereas my brothers were a little different. They were more organic growing up with it and really learned from an early age. And so it's always been a little different for me because I don't have the technical prowess that my older brothers do. And, my oldest brother ended up racing cars, won the IHRA championship, stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I just went a totally different direction. My dad had a health scare back in 95. And the doctor told him, you either need to retire or you're going to be dead in 5 years from the stress. And at that time, the business was killing him. Being able to look back on it now at 46, it's obvious what was happening. But in the moment, as a kid, I didn't really realize it. And so I went to college and went a totally different direction from anything that was in our family, and have been very fortunate, to be successful. And then now at this stage of my life, I'm a little pickier with the projects that I pick and the things that I'm working in. And so now I'm trying. I've probably overcommitted well, no, I know I've overcommitted myself
Yes.
a little bit. But that's just the way that I've grown up and always the way that I've been. And so now I have a foot in a lot of different things that are automotive related, history related, and also racing related. So yeah, a lot going on.
Boy, that's putting it mildly. I don't even want to know. Well, actually, yeah. I mean, you're involved with the car collection, auto auctions, literature. There's something else, right?
Yeah, in total, I'm involved in quite a few, whether it be advisory or ownership positions in different companies. The auction business was not something I originally anticipated being taking up an enormous amount of my time,
Hmm.
but the business grew very rapidly, and honestly, I love it more than any business that I've ever done. And it's super challenging, has a lot of ups and downs on a daily basis, but I probably wouldn't have it really any other way. And so I had built a nutrition, but I'd been in the nutrition space for almost 20 years
Oh,
and
wow.
had built up companies and sold those companies from brick and mortar retail to internet retail to actual the companies that where you would go into your local nutrition store and buy products. So that was the space I was actually in. But I've always loved cars, and when I sold those companies in 2017, I was trying to figure out what to do next type deal. And I did do some additional nutrition stuff, but ultimately exited out of all of that. And as the auction business grows, have tried to unwind things that I had previously committed myself to because I realized what a beast that was becoming. And then also at the same time, being able to be there and support my dad. My mom had passed in 16 and knew that I needed to be there, as my whole family did, for my dad. And that's really what brought along the museum, the documentary, all the content stuff that we're doing. All of that is wrapped around sort of that moment that led to us doing all this other stuff. And then now each of those things has sort of taken a life of its own that I definitely didn't anticipate.
It always ends up being that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, people had pressed on me to get dad to write a book forever.
Hmm.
And it just didn't make sense. Anybody that's familiar with my dad, he's a storyteller, but organically, he's a fantastic person to tell a story. And in his nice Southern drawl, him telling his story, I thought was what made the most sense. And so I found a crew that was familiar with doing documentary work, and we produced what I feel like is a pretty high level documentary, given we had no idea what we were doing. And part of that process really allowed for me to go through my dad's history in a different way because you have to do it in chronological order. You have to get everything exactly right, double checking his memory on stuff and all that. And so it was a 2 year process. It was super intensive. But the result, which is up on YouTube, is a 4-part series, which we have
Yep.
13 hours of content that we trimmed to about 3.5. And so it was a massive, massive undertaking. But I learned a lot about film and stuff that I didn't know anything about before. So, and now his story's out there, and I've just been blown away at the response,
Oh,
for people
it's
who've watched it.
phenomenal. It is phenomenal. As soon as it popped up, Mitchell and I both had to watch it. And I think I didn't Bobby Bennett do it. Competition Plus, wasn't it Bobby Bennett that did it? Oh,
Yeah,
it
but, you know,
escapes me.
it was just so funny because we got done with it, and it was right before Carlisle, and I believe it was 19 or 20. I can't remember what year. It starts to run together kind of during that time. And we rushed, and I didn't know what to expect. I just put it up on YouTube, didn't promote it, didn't do anything, just said on Facebook, like, hey, here's the documentary. And
Here it
next thing I
is.
know, boom, it really exploded. Now, when you're that close to something, it's very difficult to know how it's going to be received because I've watched the same, 5-minute segment 1,000 times trying to get everything right. And you do that over and over. And so I thought it was good, but I didn't know. But we really worked hard to get old footage, old photographs, and all that stuff. It was a fun process.
So not to go, really deep in that because we want people to take the time and go and watch that documentary, that is watching this today. But kind of give us a little bit of your father's history in drag racing, all the way up
Sure.
to where he kind of got the nickname Mr. Four Speed.
Sure. Well, dad being of the era, being born in the 40s and then so therefore being of driving age in the early 60s, anybody that grew up in that time for the most part was associated with car culture. Like cars were everything. They really were. And so like most kids as drag races as racetracks were starting to come about, and especially in the South, my dad was born in Memphis, Tennessee. Racing is where the drag strip is where you went as a kid to race all your buddies and who was the fastest. And you got the premium parking spot at the local Toddle House and stuff like that. That was such a big deal. And so, dad was a local racer within Memphis and started out with Chevrolets and was outrunning a man named John Moore, who actually worked at Plymouth and ran like the troubleshooting contest and all that stuff that people are generally familiar with. And John asked if, dad could drive a 4-speed, Mopar. And he's like, I can drive a 4-speed anything. He's a very, very confident, 21, 22-year-old kid. And that's what landed him the 65 A990 car, which was Plymouth coming in, with a factory lightweight car that still runs in a lot of classes, today. And his mom had made him a shirt up when he transferred over to the Plymouth name in 65. I'd made him a shirt, which we have in the museum, which is really cool. And it just says Mr. Four Speed on it. It was a name given to him locally. He had always raced 4 speeds and actually had been discouraged by Plymouth initially, by saying like, hey, you actually don't need to run a 4-speed, that like, you're going to be better in the automatic. And he's like, if that's the case, I won't race. Like I don't want that. And so, he took off with the 65 car and won about 75% of his races in 65 with that car. And then at that point it was on with Plymouth, and that, he stayed with them and then obviously eventually ends up with Sox and Martin, and, story goes on from there.
Yeah, I mean, just a wonderful story of starting out and drag racing with Chevys and getting the opportunity to jump in some Mopars and
Well,
in
the
the
joke
history
is
of
we could have ended
Belmont.
up in any family in any brand, because dad starts with Chevrolets, ends up in Mopar, and then at a very brief period of bad decision making ended up in a Ford. And so, like there were all the brands that were there, at some point. And, if he had hung with Roush for probably an additional 6 to 12 months, life could have been very different for us. It's very likely we would have ended up, a big Ford family at that point, because, Ford was with the hauler car that dad was racing. The car was incredibly quick, but the problem was it just wouldn't stay together. And they had to work out all those bugs on that platform, which is ultimately what Glidden comes into, later, and actually, does amazing with it. So, but racing was changing a lot then. Obviously, the 4 speeds were going away, and just to people that were racing the 4 speeds at the time, I think it just kind of felt like a slap in the face because they had gotten to a point where there's only a select few that were able to really competently drive those cars at the speeds that
Right.
they were going with the equipment that was available. And now, as all classes evolve, it just opened it up for a lot more people to be able to be there. And I think to probably those drivers of the time, it was like, well, wait, this is our club. We've put in all these years and now we're the best at this thing. But now with this change, all of a sudden there's a lot more people that can play in the sandbox. And
Mhm.
racing obviously changed a lot during, the fuel crunch and all that stuff. And the shorter, I'm very thankful that my father didn't get too much into the shorter wheelbase cars because, seeing those things today and thinking about how fast they went back then, it's a what have y'all
Oh
done
yeah.
get. I mean, whew,
Oh
Makes
yeah.
it sound like it's a little sketchy.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing with having hunted down a lot of dad's old cars and stuff like that, and taking them to shows, and it doesn't get lost on me when moving a car just simply from the trailer, driving it around, and thinking that, this was my dad's office. This is where he spent the overwhelming majority of his time was either in that seat or the seat of the hauler that he was driving to go on to the next race. And it's really incredible to see how minimalistic it really was and what they were able to do, all the drivers,
Mhm.
not obviously just at all those guys that were racing during that time. I mean, there's just never going to be a time like that again. It's just
Oh yeah.
it's amazing to look back on.
Well,
Totally agree.
like you was mentioning, you was talking, at that era you had your Chevys and your Mopars and your Fords. And and today, when you go to watch a national event, unfortunately, Pro Stock's pretty much just turned into a Chevrolet style class. So a lot of fans are now, looking at the sportsman racing portion of the events because it's a mixed match of all different types of, of makes
Right.
and models that are
Manufacturers. Yes.
running over there in stock and super stock. And I
Well,
think it's
stock
actually
and super
driving them
stock
over.
allows you stock and super stock allows you to be relatable. You can look at the car, and while super stock can be a little different, but I mean, especially stock. I mean, this is a car that when you look at it from the outside, you can relate to something that you've seen in the street. I've always thought it would be interesting for NHRA to take an approach of taking some of the parking area around where the national events are and make it a car show that you pay to enter, which gets you a general admission ticket into the NHRA event. Reframe what you're going to at an NHRA event. NHRA has been pushed for, since its existence as a racing organization. You've probably come close to tapping that demographic. And while you can spend a lot more money to advertise it, your incremental gain is going to be it's just going to be very small. So you have to reframe the way people look at a NHRA race. And so to me, if you called it like a car show, so you get people there to understand that they can walk through the sportsman pits. They can talk to these people. They can look at a car that does resemble the car that they might have if they're a muscle car person, and and talk to these guys. And there's not a whole lot of places you can go to, and especially at a big national event, where you could go to a car show and see 200 plus, 300 plus cars that are of the quality of those cars. I think people might judge what they think those cars are if they've never seen them and don't realize how most of those cars are show cars and are actually really nice. It would be an interesting way for NHRA to try to bring in some new people and show them that you can actually go to this and a drag race is happening, but there's actually a car show in the pits if you go walk through it.
Absolutely agree. And actually, Bobby Fazio, our friend Bobby Fazio, has coined
Mhm.
the car show. And you've met Bobby. And driver's interview with Bobby Fazio, if anybody wants to go hear him. Matter of fact, he'll be on again tonight. And I tell you what, and he's absolutely right. Especially stock and super stock is a
Mhm.
rolling car show. All the eras. And it's just, they're absolutely beautiful. Matter of fact, on my television set over the corner here, I have the Hemi Challenge from Indy last year pulled up on YouTube on Competition Plus. We totally agree. Mitchell and I have talked about different ideas that'd be good. For example, on the midway at a national event, reach out to local people at local tracks that run local brackets, okay, and have some of their cars on display. Then pull some cars from the sportsman pits that are attending that event everything and rotate them because we understand the qualifying and stuff like that. But from top dragster down to stock eliminator, and have the super eliminators in between with a description of the classes. And you can rotate them in and out from different people through the weekend. So people come through and it's like going, hey, this guy, I know this guy. I didn't know he's going to be here. You know what I mean? Start talking like that. Then you look at everything down like stock eliminator, just like you said, like going, I can relate to this. And have a variety, not just a Hemi car necessarily or a big block Camaro, but everything down to a one-day pick, like a front-wheel drive car, for example, stock eliminator car, or something different in a stock eliminator, and including the super eliminators, and change it up each time, and promote promote the people in the cars and their marketing partners that are on their cars, and I think it's a good move. I mean, it would take a little bit of effort, but I think it's something that can help everybody.
The trick is consistency. No matter what gets done, you're going to have to maintain it for an extended period of time to actually see if it gets traction. I think it's
agreed.
A lot of people will try a new thing and then it doesn't work by however they're judging that, and then they immediately quit on it. But ultimately, you really got to stay consistent for a long time. And Drive to Survive during the pandemic showed that you can tell a human interest story and drive people who may have been interested in racing and then get them over to a sport. I personally never watched F1 racing in my life. And during the pandemic, like a lot of people, watched Drive to Survive. And then coming out of that, they had one of the best, seasons they could have ever had as far as the championship and all that stuff. And it hooked a bunch of people and they've literally exploded. I don't know that that format necessarily works from NHRA, but it's the fact that you have to be able to storytell. It's got to be driven by social. You got to be able to connect with a bunch of smaller groups. I don't know that there's a home run out there to gain interest, but it's just going to have to hit a lot of singles to add up the score. It's not going to be there's not an end all be all solution, and you got to have a group that would be dedicated to it, that would go through what would be perceived as losses on the front to get to the win on the back. And that's really difficult these days for a lot of companies to do. And I imagine NHRA's, of course, primary focus is on TV rights and things, because that's what actually drives, their revenue. So it's hard, it's hard to pull them off that focus sometimes.
Yeah.
But I like that, that kind of concept, because, as the NHRA grows, we also want it to grow with younger and younger people coming in to come to the event. So we want something to make them gravitate to an event, to get hooked, just like myself. I went to a national event, went to the Gator Nationals, and man, I wanted to be there at every Gator Nationals from then on. And actually, I have been at every one of them, except for one. I was sick, and I still drove there to the track and stood outside on the non-pit side and stood there at the fence close to the traps and watched some cars go through, because I was sick as a dog, but I still wanted to watch some racing. But we got to continue to gravitate younger and younger crowds. So
and I think
drag racing lives on.
I think Pro Mod is helping a lot with that, because you can look at the Pro Mod circuit, and we'll just call it outlaw and heads up racing in general.
Right.
How personalities are developing there, and then those people go and race within NHRA, and you can drag people who are absolutely aware of NHRA, but they're not watching NHRA because there's not a story for them to connect to. So these personalities are being built, off the top of my head, like Stevie Jackson, of course. But there's also people, and this is a great example, a local example for me is Travis Harvey, who local Burlington, North Carolina person who I've seen him race. He doesn't age. He looks exactly the same as he did 20 years ago. But he's raced everything that has four wheels. I don't care what it is. He's a fantastic driver. Now has always been known for that locally. And then at Charlotte, I think it was last year, ended up in a ride, ends up winning, Pro Mod. And the amount of people that were watching and supporting him through our little local network, who would have probably never watched an NHRA event or NHRA TV or their YouTube channel or any of that stuff, it went through the roof. And you're going to have a path for people who have local stories, regional followings, have the ability to race at an NHRA level to drag those people in. And that's tough given the cost, obviously, of what Pro Mod is. But right now, that is by far, the hottest category, out there. And that to me is probably the low hanging fruit is
Right.
embracing those drivers, embracing those stories, telling those stories, and then dragging those people who are already they're in the store, they're not on your aisle. Like,
Right,
so they're
right.
interested in drag racing, but they're not coming over. But ultimately, whoever delivers the best content and does it on a consistent basis is going to find victory there somewhere.
Agreed.
Well, and no, I kind of really thank NHRA for allowing people like us that have media credentials and be able to come in. Me and Robert, we have actually walked through the pro pits, and we have actually gone to some of the sportsman racers and interviewed them and talk about their car and talk about the class that they run in. Some of these guys, they run multiple classes, or
Mhm.
they have a father and son, say the Hidalgos. They run stock and super stock, and we try to bring that content in. And it's really funny when someone asks me, they go, "Well, that's a stock, Challenger. How does it run that?" I said, "Well, you need to go to a national event or even a divisional event. You need to go up and you need to talk to them. They'll kind of give you a roundabout figure the reason why, but they're running everything stock, and they can kind of tell you a little bit about the rules. If you want to dive into it, that's the way that you find out more information, or listen to people like us and Bobby Fazio, and I don't want to leave
As
out
long as you don't
Joe
try to explain
Casella.
comp, because nobody understands comp eliminator. So as long as you
Right.
don't try to
I don't
explain
even
that,
understand it,
I,
and I like it. And I like it. I mean, we had the Treadwells on here, and I was asking them. I was like, "Going, look, man." I said, "I understand that you get your hand slapped between 5 and 6 tenths under, for the next
yeah,
round." I said, and at 6 tenths, I said that outside of qualifying, I'm talking about eliminations. At
yeah.
6 tenths is when you start getting a permanent hit on the index. I said, the thing I don't understand also, I said, is the personal index. When does that kick in?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
and
too confusing.
he
I
pulled out a
hardly
dry
understand
erase board.
I hardly understand stock or super stock. So it's too much. It's too much for me.
Yeah,
So
and you
yeah,
see, and that's both good and bad. It's the racers
right.
understand it to want to make things more even, but it's difficult for the fan watching. It's like the super eliminators. As much as I like racing, throttle stops has made it more difficult for somebody watching it to
Right.
enjoy it. Okay, I'm not saying for the competition on track, but where they need to really promote the super eliminators is they need to have a grandstand at the finish line. Okay, because that's where everything
That's where all the
happens.
magic happens. Yeah.
That's everything. I mean, that's where you see somebody being chased or hunting down or whatever, looking over his shoulder, however you want to say it. And this is true for all the sportsman eliminators as far as real good action.
Right.
But we completely agree with you. It's like going, there is things, it's like, I believe that they need to I can't say PG because I don't agree with going off on things, but I think if somebody has a problem with another racer, like if you want to call them out, okay, short of bringing their mother into it, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? But if you got a real competition rival, let them have a competition
Yeah.
rival. Okay, let them say it. You
Well,
know,
it's you got to get people in there, and that's why things like the Hemi Challenge are really simple for people to understand. It's very elementary. It's two car types with what's a similar the same platform, and it's
Mhm.
first man to the finish line, and so that within it's just class heads up racing, but it's held almost as its own special race, but it makes it super simple to understand. And we've shown metrics that show that through YouTube and whatnot, that there is an interest in watching that because it's somewhat relatable and it's easy to understand. I don't have to explain to somebody why somebody won. It's because that
Right.
car got there
Right.
first.
And
No,
It's
you're
pretty
right.
simple.
You're right. You're right.
and it's a walk down memory lane too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's doing the Hemi shootout last year for the first time that way. You got to remember, Dad's been announcing the Hemi shootout for I don't even know 15 years
Yeah, a long
in that
time.
ballpark, if not 20 years. And so it's such a change now to be on the other side of it. And it's I used to just carry Dad up to the tower to announce, and that was kind of it. We, fiddle around in the pits, and now it's a whole different now it's a whole different animal. So
Well, tell us, how did you get involved with the Sox and Martin Hemi Challenge? How did that come
it
about?
definitely wasn't something that I went out to seek. It sought me out. The Dodge was not going to do the Hemi shootout last year, and I believe it was March of last year is when I got that information, was that they were just pulling back on advertising funds and focusing on in different areas. And I was speaking with David Akeem, who really is the one that really pulled the Hemi Challenge together from the start and has been a part of it. And he helps me with a lot of PR oriented things. And he was like, "What if you called the Hemi Shootout the Sox and Martin Hemi Shootout?" And I'm like, "You're crazy." I'm like, I don't know about that." And then sat on it for a day, and then started making phone calls. And next thing I knew, I had a 3-year contract with NHRA for it to be the Sox and Martin Hemi Shootout. And I thought when I did it that it would just be more of cutting a check and the prize purse gets paid out and that would be it. And ended up being far more uh, involved in the whole process of it. And then also people thought I was a lot more involved in the process. So I have no influence on rules. I can't change anything. I can't add cars into classes and things of that sort. So for the people that reach out to me asking me those things, NHRA owns the race. I do not. My name is on it with the Sox and Martin stuff, but that's it. Like I don't have any influence on that. And so technical specifications and this and that, NHRA. They have
Right,
a tech
right.
department. Go there. Go
You're
talk to
like,
them about it.
you're like,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
I tell you
And
what,
go ahead.
I tell you what, I just wanted to mention this real quick. We've got quite a few people watching, and I just want to let them know if they want to know something, they want to ask any questions. Feel free to comment, and we'll post up your questions and stuff on
Sure.
the screen, and try to answer them the best that we possibly can. And especially, we're going to throw it to Mike if it's something to do with the Hemi Shootout challenge, because they've been involved in that for quite a while. And Mike, you've even drove in it, I believe, as well. And it's just a great race within a race. So if you have a question, please leave a comment and we'll pop it up. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, no problem. Well, see, last year, we did a lot for the drivers, or attempted to. I, was building the plane while I was flying it. Didn't really know all the things I would need to do, but tried to support the drivers as best I could. Tried not to bother them during the race. They are there to race. They're not there to placate to whatever thing that I want to do. So I tried to give them all the space that I could. Learned a lot in the first year. I was back and forth with NHRA a lot. I had a very strong belief that if we could televise for free the Hemi shootout from round one all the way through, that there would be incredibly strong engagement because of the buildup that we had done. And through a lot of fighting and shocking, cutting checks, I was able to get the stream up for free on YouTube for the Hemi shootout starting at 11 o'clock. And then they ran it free all the way until 6 o'clock, which is when they were picking up their night coverage and doing pro qualifying and all that, which they had planned to stream that part for free. And I'm like, you've got to cut it on early. And I'm talking 10 minutes before first round's up. I'm still on the phone trying to get this done. And we got it done. And so it was live on YouTube. And this is the most amazing stat. And you can go and look on YouTube and see this for yourself. If you go to NHRA's YouTube page and go to their live events, all of them that they've ever done, and put them in most popular order, that day is the second most popular day that NHRA has ever had in the history of YouTube live streaming. And it was like that by the end of that day. So it's not something that had to build up over like a long period of time. And because of 6 and 10 months of viewership, it was like that immediately. And we would see bumps every time the Hemi challenge was coming up because I was going live on my Facebook page saying, "Hey, you can go watch it. You can go watch it." And to give all the credit to the drivers, they not only showed up in total numbers, but it was by far the best, most competitive racing that has
yes,
ever existed in the Hemi shootout. I mean, in the past, there'd been some really big gaps between the top and really everywhere else. And Camella is just an animal. I mean, he's so consistent and he's so difficult to beat. But the other drivers were knocking on the door, and they were
Mhm.
all right there, and it was incredible. I could not have asked for a better first inaugural race for it being the Stockton Martin part. Buddy Martin on the starting line, dad there, all that stuff. It was really incredible. And so for this year, nothing will change about obviously how the races run and all that type of stuff. We're making some stuff that involves with the drivers and things like that to try to make things a little easier for them. But the goal is just to give as much attention as we can. That's the only thing that I really care about is just, with a family that's done sportsman racing. I obviously have not done that racing myself, but the rest of the family has. I just if I can shine a light on it, I just want to see. I like data. I want to see if I'm right or not.
Right.
And last year
Right.
proved it was right. And I'm in talks with them now to, hopefully get some pretty cool stuff done that we're talking about, meeting with NHRA. So a lot of positive stuff is happening for at least that part of the sportsman stuff.
Well, I know I totally enjoyed it. I mean, I really did. And my son, my youngest son, he's the only one out of my three kids that loves drag racing. He sat right there and he watched it. And he thought it was really cool to see those cars run down the track and all the paint schemes on them. And actually, we were actually watching a little bit of the IHRA race
Yeah.
this past weekend, and Steve Camella, he took care of business there as well and was able to win the shootout that they put on.
But
Yeah,
it was close.
he's thrown the gauntlet down, but you have people that are within hundreds, now, which does make it a driver's race. You have the opportunity at the starting line to potentially win the race. In past, there was over a tenth a lot of times,
Right.
and that's difficult because you truly need luck or something unfortunate to happen in order, to be able to win. But there's a lot of people that are getting very fast and getting their
Mhm.
stuff worked out. And people have asked me a lot about the IHRA stuff and what I think about it. And I think anytime a racer has an opportunity to run for money, real money, it's always a good thing. And so I was
Agreed.
happy to see the guys, running there and, being able to, to get some money and get some testing. Because of course, for me, I'm hoping that for our event, everybody's, locked in, dialed in, and can put on the best show they can.
Agreed.
Y'all might
Agreed.
have to put a bounty on him.
What was that? Sorry, you broke out for
I
a
said,
second.
oh, sorry. I said you might have to put a bounty on Steve.
I know, right? Yeah, he's so consistent and he takes it as all the racers do very seriously, but he has obviously figured out the best way to maximize that combination and get the most out of it to the ground. And he is always consistent on the starting line too, which is a
Mhm.
huge factor. I mean, it's rare that he makes a big mistake one way. Like you're not going to see him go '04 red or see him go '06 green. Like
Right.
that's just not where he's at. He makes
Agreed.
enough laps in a car period that he's got a process that obviously works for him.
Yeah,
Well,
that axe is actually sharpened really well for that tree.
oh yeah.
Pretty close.
I mean, when we interviewed Steve Camella, it was off air. We were talking just how, like you said, he's very systematic. He works at this very very hard to minimize mistakes and to be consistent. And he does some things, and I'm like, that's pretty zen talk right there. And but that's his routine that works for him, and it shows. And he works hard just like everybody else. I mean, and you've put together such a good program that it's brought Westcott out of retirement. Okay, okay, and I mean now he's planning on coming to Indy, and I don't know if he's going to have the whole Barnett car or not. I don't know who bought that, but boy, he picked that one up quick. I mean, ET wise, okay, and then Bucky with his cars and Jason driving one, and then last year you saw what happened at the Dutch Classic with Bucky laying down the quickest and fastest Hemi pass and happened to be with an automatic. Now the question is, if Steve hadn't pushed the clutch in because Bucky went red, what would have happened? Because I saw
right?
the incrementals, and I'm like, okay, this might have been interesting. Not saying it would have been quicker, but I'm saying it
Right.
might have been interesting. And he said that's the great, wonderful thing. Now, when you were talking about when you got the phone call from Mopar asking if you would like to be or interested in stepping in, was one of your first calls to Buddy to ask him?
Well, once I acquired the Sox and Martin trademark a
Mm,
little bit ago, and so I knew I could put the name on it. And one of the coolest things that I've ever done is so with changing sponsorships at Indianapolis Raceway Park, I got a call. We'd already agreed to the Sox and Martin thing and all that stuff. And NHRA called me and said, and it was pretty close to race time. They were like, "Would you like to have the scoreboard at the track?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "We can't be talking about the same thing." And they're like, "Yeah, the actual, left lane, you could have the scoreboard." And I'm like, "How big is that?" Because I knew it was big, and it was some just unbelievable dimension. And I'm like, "Absolutely, sure, why not?" So I didn't tell
yeah.
dad, I didn't tell buddy or anything. And so I usually bring a car up, either the Sox and Martin 70 Duster or Dad's 68 Dart. I'll bring those cars up there. And so I managed to get dad and buddy in the venue without seeing it. And so then took the car and said, "Hey, I want to take some pictures at the end of the track with the Duster." And so we get everybody in, we pull the car up and of course park it right in front of the big scoreboard and get out. And watching Buddy get emotional, that is not a man that experiences those types of emotions at the time,
Really?
86 years old. And you have to you have to look at it through his eyes. A man who had built arguably the most successful team, just hard stop, regardless of class, of the time, and would feel like that through unfair rules was essentially kicked out of the sport that he and Ronnie Sox had dominated. I mean, that's a lot of different perspectives depending on which brands you like, but I
No,
mean,
no, but
that's the way
it's a true statement. It's a true
through
statement.
his eyes, that's what it is. And here we are, so many years later, 50 plus years later, and we're at what is the biggest event, and his name is on the scoreboard. And so all weekend long, Brian Loans and all the guys just doing, the announcing and hearing in the Sox and Martin lane, da 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 da, Sox and Martin lane, and the smile on Buddy's face, over that, it's hard to explain. And at the end of the Hemi shootout, my nephew was at the end of the track with the duster, and Buddy was down there to award the trophy. And so when they come back up the track, it's my nephew driving with Buddy in the passenger seat, and Camella's behind, and they're going to go up to do the winner circle picture, which is behind the tower. And my nephew noticed that there were a ton of people, obviously, at the fence, as there are during pro qualifying, which is what's going on because they run the finals of the Hemi shootout, usually after pro stock before nitro. And so he took the car and brought it over towards the fence, and Buddy sticks his hand out and he's just high fiving people all the way down the fence. And my nephew told me like he got choked up, and that's just not something that I could imagine. And I talked to Buddy, in the winter circle afterwards, and he's like, I just could not believe that this day would ever happen where to him that relationship had been fractured. And
Right.
then now all of a sudden it comes back and his name's up on the board. And it was just absolutely one of the coolest moments of my life, just to hear him, say that and feel that appreciative for it.
That's so good to hear. And I tell you, I know your father has a really, I can't say soft spot, but I know it's a true love for Buddy, for what Buddy did for him. Bringing him on the team and I can't say keeping him on his radar, but obviously seeing what your father could do,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
working
Yeah.
and put him in and get him on the team. And if I remember correctly, Ronnie Sox always liked him, but didn't quite know about this team part,
Sure.
and but it worked out for the best.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Buddy was running a business, and that's how he needed to look at it. And it required, from the match racing standpoint, to have two cars because with the other cars that were out there, you needed an additional car from somebody.
mhm,
And ultimately, Sox and Martin would provide that car. Eventually, Dad did become, the second driver for the car, which allowed them to match race heavily. And Dad winning Indy, as Buddy will tell you, was huge for Sox and Martin because it showed that a non-running car could perform at that level, and then
right,
allowed them to sell a lot of customer cars, which is the business that pays all the bills. So,
exactly,
the race winnings weren't paying the bills. Building 30 plus cars pays the bills. Selling parts pays the bills. So,
absolutely. Hey,
well,
yeah. So way ahead of his time on business structure for racing.
Yeah,
Uh,
people don't understand because they don't think about it. The stories that they tell is that they would finish a race, Dad, Ronnie, whoever, and then they're having to call back and go, "Where am I going?" Because Buddy's booking match races and all that stuff. But think about that. Buddy doesn't know when the race is going to end, doesn't know when the call's going to come in, but he's got to be ready at that estimated time to tell them where to go next. And so even though he wasn't on the road, he was having to run their schedule essentially in his head. Because if they're on the West Coast, they're not going to drive straight back to Burlington. He's
right.
going to find something, a match race to book, something somewhere. And so just think of the difficulty of that time going to a payphone, hoping the person who happened to be on the other end was waiting by the phone. And then Buddy was terrible at geography. He had no problem sending you 1,000 miles out of the way. And, and you got to be there like the next day. And, as a driver, overwhelmingly the drivers were also the race rig drivers as well.
Right.
And so imagine in the heat that we've had this summer and that you go and race all day, have essentially no air conditioning, no level of hydration drinks, all the things that we have available today. And then when you're done, by the way, you get to go drive 700 miles to go do it all again. With no GPS, where are truck stops, where's fuel stop? I mean, just all of the complications. It's unbelievable that all the teams ever showed up anywhere on time. It's absolutely incredible.
Very, very challenging, not just on the track, but off the track as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Dad will tell you that, had Nicholson had the proper support at the time, that he likely would have been the top driver of the time, but just didn't get the support and didn't have a secondary person. Dad having Gail Mortimer to travel around with him was huge because it's just allowed alternating driving when you're driving the rig, just simple things, that were there to help. And some of these other drivers didn't have that. And so I don't want to call it lack of success because I don't think that's a fair term for it, but they could have achieved more with a different level of support that would have allowed them. What Sox and Martin did is it allowed the people that whatever they did best to do that and not have to worry about doing things that they weren't the best at. But when you have to be the mechanic, the driver, the truck driver, the booker for your shows, all of that stuff, you're spread too thin and you can't do everything at 100%. And I think that limited some of the other drivers at the time.
I guess Kazi came into the picture with Don Nicholson later in his career. I think it was in the mid late 70s. Had it been early, okay, I got what you're saying. Had somebody like Kazi got involved with him in the earlier 70s. Okay. I didn't realize that.
If Ford had given a different level of support, Dad will absolutely tell you that Nicholson was likely the best person of the time, but just didn't have the support to be able to do it because it is those intangibles that make the difference in anything. You allow the best people to do the best thing when they're not the engine builder. Dad didn't build the engines in his car.
Right.
And he could alternate with driving. Buddy was booking. Dad didn't book his match races of the time. Imagine trying to do all of that as one person. It's impossible. There's no way to do it. So, yeah, it's just an interesting prism to look at it through and really appreciate how insanely difficult what those guys were doing at that time.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Well, before we get into y'all's collection, I got a bunch of pictures, and I kind of want to go through them and kind of let you explain to people who's watching what they're looking at. But one of the things that me and Robert would like to do up at the U.S. Nationals, we would love to walk through and do pit interviews with several of the drivers that's going to be competing this year in that Hemi shootout.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm trying to work on with NHRA is the drivers do generally part pretty close together because it just makes everything easier with going up for eliminations and all that stuff. And overwhelmingly, the guys are all very friendly. Obviously, when race time comes, everybody gets siloed up. But I'm trying to create an area within that area that'll be sort of a central gathering place. I think a lot of times it's difficult for the racers to mingle because you kind of go back to your hauler and go hide in your toter home. It's a common thing. And so I want to have a common area so that there's a place kind of for everybody to come out. Also, it gives us a place for a driver's meeting or anything else that we need to have. These guys get a lot of swag from us as, to show support for them. And I'm hoping that we have something like that so that for instance, in your case, you'd be able to come there and we can actually sit you down and be able to have you in a way where the drivers can easily get to you or crew members can get to you and you can talk and interview without it kind of being the awkward standing outside, at the
Yeah.
car all the time. Just having a different way of being able to do it and not have to go inside somebody's motorhome or something like that. So I'm
Food.
fingers crossed
Have
we're going to
food.
get there.
If you have food, you will bring them out.
Yeah.
And one of the things I would like to do is, those interviews, those interview clips, I would like to take and share them with the NHRA. So if they want to later on post it on their website of those interviews, they're more than welcome to get people more knowledgeable of the Hemi shootout and what it represents and who those drivers really are, not just as drivers but as people. So.
Yep. Yeah. The thing I would say is do your best to do that on Wednesday if possible, because qualifying's Thursday, elimination's Friday. And once those guys are locked in, I mean, you talk to Camilla and all those other drivers are the same way. It's like they have a routine, they have a process. And that's where I got really hands off. I did everything I could to not interfere at all with any of that, like going by and going, hey, can I put a GoPro in your car? Like, I didn't want to be that person. It was the first year I wanted to respect their process and what they were doing and just let them be racers.
Because these are 1968 pro stockers.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, they are pro stockers. I mean, anybody can say what they want, but the science and the technology and the effort put into them, it's equivalent to a modern pro stock team.
Yeah, I mean, the joke is
shootout team or everything.
Yeah, the joke is if you want to be a millionaire in AH racing, you start out as a multimillionaire. I mean,
Yes!
that's the way. That's the easiest way to do it. I mean, these guys are doing it because they love it. It obviously has nothing to do with the financial component. So it's these guys are doing it solely for the fact of competitiveness, loving the cars, loving the history, and all that stuff. And that's why, as someone who is not racing but sort of adjacent to it, saw an ability to be able to support it and hopefully keep it going. And my dad, it would have destroyed my dad if the Hemi shootout had not happened last year. He loves that event so much. And so, yeah, I don't think I had a choice. I think I had to do I had to do it.
Well, if he was signing the check before you could get to it, you'd be like going, okay, all right.
It's funny because, with all the things going on, because I am way more in the background. Obviously, social media, doing podcasts, things like this changes that a little bit. But, I've always just kind of worked in the shadows and I've always been, fine with that. A lot of people end up being surprised when they come to the museum and then learn that, this is the car collection that I've put together because I'm kind of off the radar. I'm not the guy that most people are used to seeing with all that stuff, but I've loved the 50s cars forever. But what I did as a job didn't happen within the car space. So it was just kind of, I was sort of invisible. And Dad's such an overwhelming presence. I mean, it's, he's everywhere. He's always driving his cars and, he's at all the events. And I try to do what I can go into those things. But, ultimately I get pulled into, places like this right now that keep me from being able to do that sometimes.
You're the booker, as you were saying about Buddy earlier, as far as behind the scenes. You're the booker.
Right.
And but that makes sense. But explain to everybody more about the auction business that you're involved with. For example, you don't have to share where you're at right now, but you're preparing for an auction. Explain more to that and how people can get a hold of you.
When I was doing the museum, and which is a funny story because I never intended to do a museum at all. I had used that term with my father, just discussing something I was going to do 2017, 2018. And he communicated to people at Hot Rod that I was going to be doing a museum and the Hot Rod Power Tour was coming within 2 miles of this supposed museum. And so we're at Barrett Jackson in 2018 in January. And he keeps asking me about the museum and when I'm going to open it. And I'm like, why do you keep asking me this? And I said, what have you done? Because I know him well enough to know what's happened. Well, I was talking to some people, the Hot Rod Power Tour is going to be coming by. And I'm like, oh my God. So at that point, the building that is now the museum had gravity feed racking all in it because I had just sold my company and had not cleaned out all this stuff. And so it was a mad scramble to try to make it presentable for whatever a museum would be. And at that auction, I bought 2 signs because I thought it's great to have cars, but having something around the cars really amplifies the experience. What I didn't anticipate is that I would become addicted to the history of buying signs and doing all that type of stuff. And as you can see
Oh
in the
yeah.
picture there, this is an older picture at this point. So now there's almost double the amount of advertising in there, and I've had to change the layout of the cars because we needed to put more stuff in there. So we keep about 23 to 25 cars on display at any one time. There's over 1,000 pieces of advertising that are hung up, and if I truly counted things like oil cans and stuff like that, it's probably closer to 2,000 total pieces. And so during that process, I met somebody named Jordan Richmond, who is now my business partner. Oh, no, I
Oh
wish,
wow.
no, wait, I wish this was my collection. This is a customer's collection that we
Okay.
sold. Yeah, no, I don't know how to spell Buick. So, that's a customer that we sold their collection at our auction house. And so as I started getting familiar with the
Jeez.
history of all the advertising and stuff like that. And you'd be surprised, while granted this is an exceptional collection in this picture, there's a lot more of this out there than people realize.
True.
And people that love cars will buy cars to their square footage. So if they have 10,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet, they'll fill it up. They'll just adjust their budget. But they still want to buy stuff. And once they start buying advertising and things of that sort, it gets out of hand. And as I was learning, I didn't like the auction experience that I had when I was trying to build my collection, and ultimately teamed up with Jordan Richmond, and we started Richmond Auctions in 2021. And now in 2025, we are the premier auction house in the country for high-end advertising. And so we've set, records in every category. And as we've started to do that, we gain the attention of other collectors. And now people have asked us to sell their car collections. And so the building I'm sitting in currently houses over 100 cars total on the property and over 400 pieces of advertising. And so now I'm knee deep into all of that stuff. And as you guys are seeing now, these are some of the images of the race cars. The previous one was the GT1 car that was campaigned in AHRA by Dad and Ronnie, and then that's Dad's 72 Demon, which if you're into some of the tricks and things that were done in the
Yes.
time and rule book interpretations, definitely encourage you to go to the documentary and watch. Specifically, it is in chronological order. The year for 1972, we did a bunch of animation and things to be able to show what was done, not just by Sox and Martin, but also lots of other teams to interpret the rule book.
Very
Uh,
trick. Very
yeah,
trick car.
yeah, and so that's the 67 car. Dad had that for a short period of time. Him and John Livingston had tried to campaign a funny car that they had bought from the Ram Chargers, and ultimately it was involved in a bad wreck. And so Dad and John both bought 67 factory lightweight cars. And so that's his original factory lightweight car there that's been restored back to, as raced condition. I found that one probably about 4 years ago. And that's a clone of the 65 car. I actually have the real 65 car, but it's so far gone that if I restored it, there'd be nothing left of the original car. Maybe the roof would be about it and the firewall. So I built a clone of it to show what the car would actually look like, and also show people that I won't pull a VIN tag off of a car and pull it on another car, because I could have easily have done that in this case,
Right.
and nobody would have known the difference. And not that it would probably matter. I'll be dead before, when this thing's sold, probably. It won't be while I'm alive.
Right.
So, but that's the original scheme. All of his cars were in the blue and white scheme and had the Mr. 4-speed on the side of it. And that's a clone of the 70 Duster. The real car burned down in a towing accident in 1970. And so the real car does not exist. And so knowing that, did the tribute car, which we surprised Dad with at Carlisle, which is a cool video that's within the documentary as well. And we took that car. We'll probably take that car to the U.S. Nationals again this year. So, yeah, that's a 68 car. That's the car that really got him into the job with Sox and Martin, because he was winning all over the place. I mean, I think he won I'm trying to remember the numbers, out of 102 races, I think he won 72 or 74 or something like that in that
Wow.
car. And then second, if you count second as a runner up, it was in the high 80s. It was an incredibly successful car for him. But then as once 70 rolled around and still trying to campaign the 68 cars, it just wasn't really competitive. But luckily during that time is when he gets picked up by, Sox and Martin. And that's my mom and dad and I at Barrett Jackson. That would have been around 2014, roughly or so. She passed in 2016, but we would always go out, to the car auctions and the car events. And so, I've grown up in the
Good
auction
shirt, by the
world.
way. Good shirt.
Yeah, yeah, Death Before Prius. Yeah,
Sorry,
always
you
a
were
fun.
saying.
Yeah, so I grew up in the auction business in a way, but just more as a customer and as a fan. And now it's just turned into so much more. And I absolutely love it. I get to deal in history of all types of brands. It's not just car stuff. It's everything that existed sort of pre 1970 going back into the 1800s. And that's a shot from Florida when we did the event right before the pandemic. The 68 car is probably my favorite car, just as far as if you put it in the sunlight, uh the paint scheme on it and everything. It's just one of my favorites, and it's the car that really launched dad into being into Sox and Martin. And I would say out of all the cars, it's the one that people engage with the most.
Yeah, look at that gold leaf that's done on there. I
Yeah,
mean, just beautiful how the sun's hitting it, making it pop.
yeah. And
I
Randy
wouldn't want to
Hopkins
race
had,
it. It's so pretty.
yeah, Randy Hopkins had that car and was actually campaigning it in Superstock, and went to, this is back in
What?
the night. Yeah. And he went to repaint the car, and as he sanded it down, found some of the original paint scheme underneath it, called dad up, verified it, and sure enough, it was the car. And so Randy went and painted it, back to the original scheme, but still had it in like AH trim. And so when I bought the car from him, we sort of deconstructed it to put
Yeah,
it back
reversed it.
to
Yeah.
correct to how it would have been raced in 68. And so yeah, Randy,
Wow.
it was funny when I had sold my company. Randy was the first person I called, and I said, "You know why I'm calling you?" And he started laughing. And yeah, luckily we were able to get the deal done. And
I
so
did not know that was Randy's car.
yeah, yep, sure was. He was actively racing it, for a long time, and then found out it was dad's car, and then painted it up, like that, and then was
Right.
thankful that he was willing to work with me. And so I've always been around cars, obviously my whole life, and now with the sign stuff, it's kind of a neat spot for me because I'm never going to be my dad. Would never try to be my dad, and don't have anywhere near the technical knowledge that my dad has. It's always funny when people start coming up to me thinking I'm Herb McCandless. Obviously, I'm not, but like talking to me as if I would just be able to transplant 80 years
Right.
of
Right.
knowledge into my head. And I just go, you're wrong, McCandless, wrong
Right.
one. I'm not the one that you talk to about that type of stuff. And so, I've kind of carved my own path now in a way that's, with cars. And like, here today, my nephews, Shannon and myself, have been working on these cars to get them auction ready, that we're going to be auctioning off October 24th and 25th. So it's a really cool collection, and I'm super excited for everybody to be able to come check it out.
Now,
Yeah,
how can they find that auction? Can
Yeah, sure.
they go through your site or what?
Yeah, so they'll go to richmondauctions.com is our website. And then when they want to register and bid, it's just bid.richmondauctions.com. And we have auctions throughout the year. We have a sign auction coming up here just in a few weeks, and we sell antique firearms. We also sell gold nuggets. So, we auction off collectibles. We're
Right.
known primarily as, auctioning signs. Like this sign that's just sitting over my shoulder here, you might not think much about it, but that's a sign
Mm,
that will very likely sell for between 75,000 to upwards of $125,000. It's an incredibly rare sign, made by a company called FlexLume. It's a pure gasoline sign, but it's an incredibly rare sign. And so, these signs have reached the value of cars, which is very confusing to a lot of people. So it'll be a fun auction because we're integrating the signs and the cars. And just so people can kind of get a sense here, there's stuff here that's, all behind me. There's a Duesenberg and a bunch of pre-war stuff that's, right there. I think, yeah, there's some more pre-war stuff that way. And then there's a whole slew of muscle cars sitting down there, everything from Hemi Cudas to GT350s to Yinko Chevrolets. I mean, it's the whole gamut from the teens all the way up, through the 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, and
It's
I
going to be
think
a really fun auction.
I think you're sitting at the bar right now, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I'm sitting at a 1920s bar that came out of Chicago here. So yeah, and signs all around. So this is the stuff that that makes me happy. I didn't know about a lot of the history with gas and oil brands, and I've even discovered some car brands through advertising that I wasn't aware of. So it's been fun to. Somebody's got to preserve all this history, and I take it very serious. And I got very frustrated when I was building my collection when signs would be delivered to me at times and it being very careless. And so when you're taking care of things like this with the advertising where they can't really be restored, that's not a thing like a car. Your job is to make sure it doesn't get in any worse condition than the day you took it, because it's
Right.
never going to get in better condition. That's not a thing. And so, we take it probably obsessively serious, but we do take it very serious. And I think customers have appreciated that, because my business partner and I are collectors first. And that's the prism that we view it through. And we've been very fortunate to have a lot of great support from people out there. And I'm excited to try to sell some cars. It's our first time doing it. I may regret it, but so far it's been a heck of a learning curve. And I mean, we've worked on everything today from factory fuel injected Bel Air to Ram Air cars to a 3,000-mile original Daytona. So I mean, it's just really cool to be around stuff that I wouldn't have probably an opportunity to own, but to be able to be near the history is really cool.
Yeah, another thing that you do that I think is really great is you try to educate people about the signs, what is real and what is,
Correct.
fake. You might as well say
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
you
it's
do
very
you do a really
frustrating to
great
see
thing.
people spend the money they do and end up with something that ultimately is a modern day piece and they not realize it, but paid collectible pricing for it, or things that were misrepresented. I had that happen to me where I just didn't know. And the first time that Jordan walked through my collection, he goes, "Why do you have that fake sign over there?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then he started to educate me, and then it wasn't represented correctly. And that was extremely frustrating for me, because people work hard for their money and
Hmm.
nobody likes to feel cheated. And so we do the best we can to make sure to be as transparent, as we can, so that people know what they're doing. And we're trying to bring that philosophy to everything that we're doing for anything that we sell, because I think at large, people have a slightly negative thought about auctions in general. I don't think it's necessarily a positive thing. They just know they generally have to go there to be able to buy whatever the collectible thing is that they want. So our goal is to try to change that. I think we've done, at least for us, I think we've done a pretty good job of giving people an experience that they really enjoy and feel confident in the process, that they're having an honest experience.
Well, my
Yeah.
my wife a while back, she started taking me to some auctions, and I wasn't really into it, and she's like, "Well, won't you come?" And well, she started creating a monster,
Yep.
and she goes, "Maybe I shouldn't have never brought you here," because she's like, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm going to buy that old mason jar with that funnel coming out of it." Why? I said, "Because the mason jar is a 1920 mason jar, and they used it to fill in the car. I mean, it's a handmade funnel that they put
Yeah.
on the top." I said, "It's probably worth, I don't know, maybe 25, $30. And if I can get it for $5, that's a steal for me." And so I got it for $5 with
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people.
It's a ton of fun to go to an auction. You can learn a lot, see a lot. And I'm excited because, we will be, open where people will be able to come in and see all of this stuff. It's very unusual to have the intermixing like this collection does over this span of time and this level of advertising all in one place. And so collections like this are pretty rare. They definitely are out there, but for them all to come to market, for it to all come to market is pretty unusual. So it's a neat way to kind of travel through some history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even if someone's not really educated on what to buy and how much to spend, the really good thing for them is to do is go to the auction and don't raise your hand. sit there,
Correct. Don't
watch
wave at
what's
us.
happened.
Yes.
Look how
Exactly.
much stuff
Hey,
is
Mike,
going
how you
for.
doing?
Sold,
Congratulations, sir.
sold,
You just
sold,
sold. Yeah,
sold.
yeah, 100%. 100%.
But I tell you, I've been to several like estate sales, but they were automotive and old stuff. You know how those are. You go in front of the house, you don't see nothing much, and you walk in the back, you see an old garage, and you see equipment lined up, and you're like, oh, and you start going through. And I've bought more service manuals and old stuff like that, which was interesting to me and useful to me. But yeah, I could. I told my dad, and he's the same way. He's like, no, I can't. We can't go to these. Not without a particular one thing in mind, pre-scouted us, so we can't go to this because we'd be broke trying to walk
Right.
out, or drag out or carry out or whatever like that. But it's
Well,
part of it.
you just gave me an excellent transition piece there because you were talking about going there for auto literature. And just recently, uh, my brother and I, Herb McCandless Jr., have acquired Troxel's auto literature, which is the first time we've announced this. And I don't know how to describe this. You can go to autopaper.com to see the website. We'll be doing a lot of updating over the coming weeks. But just, I can tell you it was 11 semi trailers full of literature, everything from service manual, sales brochures, for every type of car, make, model you can imagine. And so we have 500,000 pounds, over 250 pallets in a warehouse right now that we just brought in within the past 2 weeks. And we are attempting to organize and prepare and update and all these things. And so we are in the auto literature business now. Not something that I anticipated, but ultimately, the museum sort of to be able to cover some of its overhead and stuff really needed a source of income, and this was a perfect fit for what the museum tries to do. And so, between the stuff that I already have, which is pretty massive, and then bringing this in, we're going to be expanding the business once we have it all sort of updated and inventoried
Organized and
and
stuff like that.
correct. Yeah, a significant amount of what we purchased with the business was not in inventory, so we have a learning curve to figure out what we actually have. So, kudos to my brother and my nephews, his kids, who went out there and managed to get all that stuff packed up in pallets and sent 11 semi trucks out, and then got it back to Burlington. And now it's like treasure hunting. You just open up a box and are like, "Ooh, what's that?" The problem is you're not very productive because you'll just start flipping through pages and then you're not really doing your job very well. But so yeah,
Yeah,
that's a new business because I didn't have much else going on, so I thought it would be a good idea to throw in something else into
Yeah.
into the
Well,
mix.
I tell you what, I know you haven't had a chance to go through this, but in the beginning of next month, I'm going to the Tri-Fi Nationals in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I
Hmm.
don't know if you're familiar with that particular event, but anyway, it's only 55 through 7 Chevrolets allowed on the property. Period.
Right.
Car, Corvette, or truck. That's it. Okay. And last time I was there, and I'm going this year to compete, hopefully, Lord willing, but they have over 3,000 cars show up.
Wow.
Okay. And it's impressive. It's like a 3 or 4 day event. And that's an excellent location for 55 through 7 literature.
Right.
Okay. Of
Right.
all types. I'm saying for future, just to share that with you.
Yeah.
Not that you don't have
Yeah.
people calling you going, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?
Oh
you know,
yeah.
with today, all the different types of shadow boxes that you can buy them from magazines and all of that stuff. So I mean, if you're a Ford guy or you're a Mopar guy and you like certain years or certain makes and models, if you can get that literature and put them in those shadow boxes and display them up on a wall, I mean, it just opens up a different type of collection
Yeah.
for someone to share and love and show to other people.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't end up with a car or their friend ends up with a car and you want to get them something. It's kind of like an easy way to go. Is like, hey, I'm going to get them something for their car. I've done it for the cars that I have, and you want to get all the things that you can. And oftentimes when these cars sell, unfortunately, sometimes that stuff doesn't transfer with ownership, and so
Right.
the next person ends up having to kind of go through the same process. So I'm excited to see all of the things that are there and how we can incorporate some things into the museum. Like I've got a ton of old racing photos that I'm trying to figure out the most efficient, cost efficient way to get them scanned so that they can be downloaded by people to be able to enjoy. There's doesn't
We just lost him.
Uh-oh. Wonder if his phone went dead.
Yeah, it's very possible. We've
Oh,
actually had him,
man.
we actually have had him home for quite a while, but
Man.
yeah, I mean, just some really great stuff that they're doing there with their collection, with their auction and everything. We're going to wait just for a few minutes and see if he comes
Absolutely.
back on before we close out. And looks
can't
like
I can't imagine them trying to do everything that he's doing. But I mean, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Give them some time, and they'll have this automotive literature available to everybody and organized in such a manner that they can show you what they have and can do. But also, if you're into collectibles, any way, shape, or form, reach out to Mike in his business there to be able to automotive collectibles. And like he said, everything from firearms to signs. Wow, that picture in that garage with those signs with the Buicks in the back, that was impressive. Now I got some buddies that collects that. There you are.
There we go. We got
when
him
a
back.
phone call comes in, it messes you up.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Well, in the meantime, we're being your two hype guys. Is what we were doing.
Appreciate that.
We were talking up your literature business that you have, and also your auction business that you have.
Right.
We're telling people that anything that anybody's looking for, collectible wise, signs being a really big part of your process or a part of your business, to look you up and to reach out to y'all. And go ahead.
Yeah, the easiest way to get, we have the Facebook page, which is probably the most engagement between that and the YouTube channel that we get, which is McCandless Collection in both instances. The auction business is obviously Richmond Auctions, and people contact us through there all the time. I try to do my best with getting, trying to connect and respond to everybody. And sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, but I do my best to get there. This is coming into hot season coming up. We've got a bunch of auctions, and then obviously there's a lot of auctions just in general with Pebble Beach coming up and all that stuff. September's a really busy time. Obviously, we'll be rolling into the U.S. Nationals and just sort of on and on. And then for me, the year sort of concludes with at the end of October with the auction down here near Athens, Georgia. So, and then I'm hoping if everything works right, there's a race Thanksgiving weekend. A car that I was having fun with last year, just as more of a joke to go and race. And then the race rained out Thanksgiving weekend. We built up to this whole, big moment of me coming back to racing, and then it was a total washout. So maybe this year I'll be able to, get back out there because I do enjoy being able to just hang out with my nephews and be at the racetrack and stuff like that. It's a really fun time.
Well, I am definitely interested in the literature portion, so I'm definitely going to be looking out for that because I actually have a book down here that's got sleeves in it, and I've actually got advertisements back in the 1920s that are in there, out of magazines.
Sure.
And stuff. So quite a bit of Coca-Cola stuff, that's kind of usual for that time period, but there's also car advertisements and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to see what y'all get out there and start putting out.
Yeah, it's gonna, we have to do a massive amount of updating on the back end, building the back end of the site to be proper for today's times. And so that's going to take some time. I mean, being truthful, I think it'll take us about 6 months to really wrap our head around what's there, get things organized, build all the back end the way we want to. There's significant listings that are on eBay, but everything's also, you can see it on the website. So yeah, and I'm sure as we continue to open boxes, we'll find things. So I'm excited to kind of have that treasure hunt. It'll be a fun time.
Absolutely.
I'll be keeping my eyes peeled and waiting. My wife is not going to be happy.
Yeah, well, that's something for y'all to figure out there, Mitchell. You know what I mean? I'm going to get the repair manuals and stuff like that on the different things. But I tell you what, Mike, I know you got your hands busy, and they're probably waiting to start the casket car. is probably what they're waiting on,
Yeah,
or at least attempt.
I think they I'll just do a quick check here. I think that they actually called it a night because they didn't want to risk messing with anything here, but just so people can get a sense of, some of the things that are here between, a Duesenberg, you've got, cutaway cars, the Jackson here, the V16 Cadillac, and then, there's worse visuals in life than being able to just kind of
Hmm.
walk out here and see, everything from, Hemi Cuda, 4-speed cars to, GT 500s and movie cars and everything sort of in between. So,
And this is
and
a
it,
private collection on top of that. This isn't a museum. This is a private collection.
that's correct. It was originally intended to be a museum and then just ended up going a different direction with some stuff. So yeah, 108 pieces, including everything from old tractors to, and then obviously a ton of the signs and stuff like we've talked about. Like there's just, there's signs everywhere in here.
That
And
Firestone sign's really nice.
and
No, that,
every building is like this. Every building has,
oh my gracious.
significant, very
Willis? I
significant
have
signs.
I've
Yeah.
not seen a Willis sign. I haven't. I have not
Yeah.
seen that. And I like the ESO sign that was on the back wall up in the,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's just a lot of incredible condition stuff. I mean, it's incredible that some of these signs hung, outside for all those years and then somehow didn't end up getting, literally totally destroyed. So yeah, it's going to be a fun time. I'm excited about it because it's us challenging ourselves and pushing ourselves to do something different. And I'm always for that. And I don't know where it leads us or what's next, or if we'll continue to sell cars or what we'll do. But I think we've definitely put a lot of the world on notice that we're not here just to sell signs. We're here to do a little bit more than that.
well, clearly, because I mean, your deep roots into drag racing, and the fact that y'all stepped up to sponsor the Hemi Challenge goes to show that your love for the sport and in a way to give back to the people. So that's great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a give back, and it's because of dad and his racing history and all that stuff. I mean, that's what he loves and enjoys, and what's the point in working the way that we all work if not to support your family and support your friends. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. So
I
I
agree.
I love it, and I love being able to help all the guys out and see everybody enjoy it. And like I said, try to bring our own little spin to the game. And I hopefully have some announcements. I was hoping to be able to have them for this podcast, but don't quite have them there yet. But some things with that we'll do during that weekend at the U.S. Nationals. So pretty
That
pretty
sounds great.
pretty fun stuff.
And
Well,
we
we'll be
encourage everybody.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, we encourage everybody to not only to go back and watch the videos of that race, but go this year. Go to Indy. Okay, tune in. And also to reach out and buy as much swag as you can. I'm serious, to represent
Yeah,
Stocks and Martin in the Hemi Challenge. Okay, because this is a race for racers. Okay, and a racer is putting it on. Okay, and so everybody go out there and support it. We're going to support it in our own way. Absolutely going to. Because like we were telling you before, we absolutely love sportsman racing. And I
yeah,
love class racing, especially at Indy. And
right.
I don't care. I'll be on the fence, be 2 front wheel drives going down there, and I'll be on the fence just watching, because
Oh,
yeah,
100%.
because everybody, that's the one event where everybody throws down as hard as they can from the get go. They're
100%.
sandbagging, and everybody, same with these Hemi cars, they're prepping for this event. So
100%.
that's
Yep,
what makes it
absolutely.
great. So
Well, Mike, I want to thank you, and we're looking forward to bumping into you at Indy. And like I said, try to interview some of the drivers of the Hemi Shootout Challenge, and definitely take a lot of pictures and get them displayed for people to see. And I really appreciate what you do to put that race on. I know it's a lot of hard work behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's true. I really appreciate it, guys. Happy to share the info. And as I get some other updates, I'll shoot them to you so you guys can put them out there.
We definitely will do that.
we will absolutely do that, Mike. Mike, once again, from
Perfect.
On the Spot Motorsports Media to you, I want to tell you thank you very much, buddy, and I hope you and your family and your crew has a good night and a great week.
All right, buddy. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
And there goes Mike. I tell you what a great podcast tonight. Got to find out a lot of things that Mike is into, talking about their collection, talking about the auction, talking about their family's involvement in drag racing. Just a lot of great stories and a lot of information out there. And I'm telling you, I want to give him 6 months. I want to wait around. I can't wait to see what they got literature wise and try to get some of those commercials and stuff that's in some of that literature and possibly buy it, maybe buy some manuals of some of the 68, 69, 70 model Hemi cars and put them in shadow boxes. And I'm kind of running out of room actually in here.
I've been to your man cave, and you definitely have run out. You got them on you can put them on the ceiling, but I don't think the missus is really going to smile on that one.
Well, I'm actually probably going to start putting some car parts and hang them from the ceiling, quarter panels or maybe a hood or something like that, or side piece of a door, hang them from the ceiling. But yeah, it's getting a little crowded in here. I'm going to have to talk to her about expanding the house out further this away. So
you don't have room that way, do you?
We got room the other way.
Yeah, you got room to your left. I know that.
Yep.
And but I don't know about the right. But anyway.
No, the right, I'll be in the living room, and she's already told me I'm not putting my stuff in her living room.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I'd agree with that. My wife feels the same way. I feel bad about this, but
right.
But she's very understanding. So
I've already tried. She had me put up some shelves a while back after I repainted the walls, and so I put the big shelves up, and then she came home, and I had some of the Top Fuel dragster die cast all stacked up on them, and she walked in the living room. She goes, "Thank you for putting up my."
Nope.
Thank you for putting up the shelves, but all that die cast stuff can go back in your room.
Yeah, that was a very quick nope. I'll just take care of this for you. No,
she stopped mid sentence.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for putting up the. Oh no, that's not happening.
Yeah, no, I get it. But
I tell you what, we had a great show tonight, and we've got another one coming up Thursday. Robert, you want to tell everybody about our guest?
Yes, I want everybody. If you are a fan of sportsman drag racing, in particular stock or super stock, you might be interested in this interview coming up Thursday. We have Darren Poole Adams coming on. Now, Darren, if you're unfamiliar, he typically currently runs GM products, Copo products in NHRA stock eliminator, him and Steve Foley and some others. But he has brought Toyota into the NHRA stock eliminator position, and actually they are building a new Toyota. I think it's going to be available for the end of the year, but if not, definitely next year. This ought to be something exciting to hear, because when I talk to him, it's an exciting adventure, all new stuff. So we get to learn talk to somebody to learn about the ground floor on how you bring a car into this process with NHRA through stock eliminator, and subsequently, eventually, I'm sure, super stock eliminator. So this ought to definitely be interesting to hear.
Yeah,
it's got people talking, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially if you're interested in entering the class, the basics is pretty much there for any make model car that's possibly not in the categories right now. They might be able to help you to get with the manufacturer to submit the stuff to NHRA so they can actually open up a class for your particular vehicle that you would love to race in that category for sure. But I tell you what, that's going to be a great show. And of course, we're not going to be bracket racing for a little while. We're in the summer heat, July and August. So we get a little break. But really great news. I was asked by RT Productions that puts on the Fall Brawl at Gainesville Raceway. We are going to live stream that event for them. So I'm really looking forward to that, and possibly a couple of other events coming up in and around that time frame. As soon as we get the flyer up, we will definitely post that on our page and share it to some of the bracket racing pages on Facebook to get the word out. But Yeah, it's that's going to be a really great event. This is going to be the third annual Fall Brawl at Gainesville Raceway. So I'm really glad that Rob Reynolds and Tim Goolsby is continuing this race, and hopefully for years ahead. A lot of people really enjoyed it the past 2 years. And
Agreed. They
yeah,
between Rob and Tim promoting and putting on. These are racers that they're racers themselves. So promoting it, they understand the difficulties, the ins and outs, and the schedules, and so they are very, very helpful. And it's a very well run race. And
yeah,
so it's everybody, and we're glad that On the Spot Motorsports Media is involved with them to be able to help out with the live feed. And it's going
yeah,
to be fun.
and we're also going to try to do back. So we may do something, might get with Rob Reynolds, and we may do something for the best losing package or best winning package,
Right.
or something like that, to try to get involved in it instead of just live streaming the event, but also try to get back a little bit as well. I'm always thankful for the opportunity to be able to do things like that.
I completely agree. Completely agree. We appreciate all the effort that people are putting into this, but also we appreciate everybody out there that supports Mitchell and I here at On the Spot Motorsports Media, including Redline Synthetic Oils and also Scorpion Racing Products, and others. There's many others that have been very supportive in talking to us and encouraging us and telling and sharing with people that be interested to talk to and put us in contact with others. So we appreciate that. But we tell everybody, hey, go out, support your local track, support your local car event, whatever it might be, anything from a car show to drag racing to anything in between, dirt car racing, it does not matter. Go support your local track, okay, and get involved in one way, shape, or form. And so far this year at On the Spot, we have interviewed people from drag racing to motorcycle racing to dirt car racing to land speed racing, and a lot in between. And we enjoy that. And we're reaching out to others to keep bringing some interesting conversation topics to you. So
Yeah, and actually, we had a show tonight. We got a show Thursday, and we're going to have the same thing next week. Next Tuesday night, we're going to have Taylor Kitchen. She does a really great job of covering circle track racing, if it's dirt or it's legends or if it's the Cars Tour Series. She does a really great job at doing that. And we're going to talk about all the things that she does at Above the Yellow Line. And I really love the name of her podcast.
I know.
Definitely NASCAR to the core, Above the Yellow Line. So just a really nice person. Got to meet her at the Ford Wide Nationals in Charlotte. Talked to her a little bit about coming on the podcast to try to get them more viewers as well, to subscribers to their YouTube channel. Go over there. She even not only talks racing, but she will actually get into the aspects of collecting die-cast.
That's right up your alley right there.
So, and I do have a little bit of a collection of NASCAR cars over there. Not as many as I do drag racing, but they are a few. But she gets into it pretty hardly, and you can just tell that she loves doing it because she has a smile on her face all the time.
Yeah.
But everyone, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again this Thursday.
Everybody have a good night. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
thousands of miles. Confidence for those who fly high. Redline oil products give you the power to crush the competition. And a track record of being the best. Redline oil products. You push it to the limit, we'll protect it.
Ready to take your engine to the next level? Scorpion Racing Products delivers precision-engineered, high-performance rocker arms that dominate the track. 100% CNC machined in the USA with aerospace-grade aluminum for unmatched strength and durability. Our rocker arms handle extreme conditions with multiple ratios available to fit your needs. Backed by our exclusive lifetime warranty. When performance matters, choose Scorpion Racing Products. Proven, reliable, unstoppable.